have to be your biggest fan.
Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, Adapt Canada. My name is Nikki. Today's video is going to be slightly different. I do have a special guest that I interviewed recently, and I will be showing you excerpts of the interview in this video. But first, I have to introduce the topic of conversation for you guys, my subscribers. Recently, it's been on the news that Canada has been considering placing a cap on international students coming into the country to study due to the rising cost of living and accommodation challenges that these prospective international students face when they come into Canada. For those of you who don't know what this means, it means that the government is considering limiting the number of students that are admitted into Canadian universities and colleges because of the rising cost of living and especially the accommodation challenges that international students face when they come into Canada.
When the federal government talks about putting a first ever cap on the number of international students to ease the pressure on housing,
certain communities are having difficulties managing with the population growth that it's attracted.
We have to address this in a smart way. It includes potentially looking at a cap.
that could create a whole other problem.
This topic has sparked a lot of questions among the international student community, both in Canada and prospective students hoping to enter into Canada for studies. The federal government says a cap on foreign student visas could help ease the housing crisis, but it could also be disastrous for some colleges and universities. Canadian universities and colleges, however, are of the opinion that placing a student cap is not the right solution, considering that international students contribute a significant portion of Canada's economy with important knowledge, skills, and diversity.
I feel like international students play a huge role in the economy, so we don't get enough credit for that.
If there was a cap, depending on what it looked like, it's not like this money is automatically going to come from somewhere else. And that could mean trouble for a lot of colleges and universities.
If the government announced a cap tomorrow, it would be disastrous. It would mean lost jobs. It would mean shutting down programs.
I honestly don't think that a student visa cap is going to produce any immediate results.
You might be wondering, despite what is going on, is it still safe for me to apply to come and study in Canada as an international student? Can I still apply to study in Canada and get admission as an international student? Would I be able to find accommodation when I apply, when I get admission to study in Canada? To answer all of your questions, remove any doubts and put your minds at ease, I recently had an interview with Matt McClellan, the founder and CEO of HELP, North America's largest study abroad platform, a premium end-to-end admissions and study abroad guide whom I've been working with this year to help international students get admission and scholarships in over 250 Canadian universities and colleges. He has a great perspective of what is happening in Canada from working closely with government officials, over 350 university and college partners across Canada, and thousands of international students. Here is how the interview went.
Hi everyone, I'm currently with Matt, who is the founder of HELP, and Matt is going to try and answer some of the questions that have been bordering around the controversies that Canada is facing right now, namely the international student cap and also the housing crisis and how it relates to international students. So thank you, Matt, for meeting with me today despite your busy schedule. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here and excited to talk.
Okay, so the first question is like the elephant in the room that's been going on for a month now. The former immigration minister did mention placing a cap on international students. What would this mean for Canadian institutions if there were to be a cap placed on the number of international students admitted every year in Canada?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing is I would avoid using the word crisis. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think that if we take a step back and look at what has happened, the volume of international students in Canada has grown rapidly since 2015, right? And it's a great thing because Canada, as a country, as a destination for study abroad students, it's safe. The return on the degrees is good. Our job market is ripping, and there are tons of openings across. And I know we're going to talk about that later. But coming with that can be headlines around, housing prices, inflation, and now we kind of get into talks about caps and different things. We work closely with students, schools, and the government, both in the source countries and here in Canada, to understand what is going on. Our view right now, and it is evolving, is that, you know, a cap was mentioned. It's not being actively discussed. I would be surprised if it's something that happens or happens in the near term, but that doesn't mean that we're not taking a hard look at the infrastructure and the system to understand if it's doing what it's supposed to do. So there are ways to maybe limit numbers without actually stating a cap, but it doesn't mean that it's bad, and it doesn't change, you know, your, as a candidate's likelihood of being successful in the study abroad journey. It means you need to work with the right people that understand what's going on to see if Canada is the right fit for you. And what is most likely to happen is we're going to say, okay, we have 200 to 250,000 job openings in things like nursing, vet tech, med tech, IT, whatever, right? What are the schools that are actually training two-year pathway programs or other programs to place international students into those jobs? And how can we go and recruit students to do those, to do that, right? Because right now, I think that it's not always, recruiting is not always driven by the openings we have. And that's where there can be a mismatch, which can cause people frustration around, you know, I did this program, but we're not actively being hired into the market. And what does that mean? And so I think that we will look at the system overall and the infrastructure that underpins it to understand who do we need in our economy, and then how can we make skilled study abroad immigration work to fill that gap, right? And so I wouldn't read these headlines and say Canada's accepting less people. Canada's going to be harder for me to get into than it is before. Canada's more or less expensive than US, UK, Australia, which are the other, you know, popular destinations, because none of that is true or fully true, right? And so I think that it's still a very attractive destination for the specific programs that train for the jobs where we have openings. And then within that is actually probably the best return on your spend from a degree, chance at PGWP, chance at PR, and being hired within your degree area. Long-winded way of saying don't see a cap coming, and I still think Canada is extremely attractive. And if you're interested in it, I wouldn't change. I would just make sure I work with somebody that understands what's going on and can help me get to the schools that actually fulfill the pipeline based on outcomes, not just getting you to a campus.
Yeah. Okay. Despite like everything that's going on, I know you've already hinted to it, but what would you say to international students hoping to start school in Canada? Because regardless, people still want to come to Canada either through school or PR. So what do you have to say? What is your best advice for international students who might be concerned about what's going on if they're following the news?
Yeah, I would say that there's a like most things, there is a difference in the day-to-day reality of studying and living and working in Canada versus what you might see in a 3-week news cycle in the headlines. I'm not saying that we aren't dealing with inflation and that the cost of living, especially in the metropolis areas, is increasing, but that's also true in the other destinations that you would go to, right? It's not a unique thing to Canada. If you want to come here, because I think Canada is attractive as a destination because, one, you know, the likelihood of a post-grad work permit and PR by way of a study permit is higher than anywhere else. We do have openings in the economy for jobs for the specific programs. And if you're working with someone that can facilitate that pipeline for you, it's a very attractive place to come and study. Canada is safe. And we don't control the cost of living, right? My advice would be, we do have to take a real hard look at budget, and costs might increase. They might stay the same. And yes, you're able to work 20 hours a week as an international student on that visa. And yes, you know, after the first year or even before, there are ways to get loans and subsidize and get jobs in co-ops while you're working to try to like bring down what you're spending on an annualized basis. It is still going to be pricey, but that's not a unique to Canada thing. Like anywhere you want to go for study abroad, there is a premium on that. However, you know, the hiring rates for the jobs that we have gaps in our economy that we need to have filled are extremely high, right? So if you actually work back from what are the places that Canada is hiring for? Oh, like shortages in healthcare, in nursing, private and public, or, you know, IT or med tech, whatever it is, right? And you look at the amount of job openings there are, and you can project that like 1 or 2 years, and you're working with someone that understands that. And you say, wow, that's something that I'm interested in studying in, or I'm already studying in. How can I do a post-grad program that then allows me to recruit into those openings? Then you have a much more you have a better understanding into what the return on the spend of your degree might look like, right? And I think that's what can make you a lot more comfortable is like, yes, short term, it's going to cost, right? Higher ed is expensive, but if you're doing it in a way that is intentional and purposeful with the job in mind that Canada has a need for that, then you have a better chance than not of being able to take that path, right? In which case you're able to pay back loans or participate in the economy or like pay your bills, right? In a way that is a lot better than if you just sort of say, just get me to Canada and I'll figure the rest out. And I think it comes back to finding support mechanisms in the study abroad transition that can help you understand what that is, right? Because there are a lot of people whose goal is to get you to the school or to get you and it needs to be based on a plan that works back from a job and then the program is based on that. And then you can facilitate through so that, in 24 to 26 months from getting here, you'll be working full time more likely than not. It's never a guarantee. And anyone that speaks in guarantees is lying to you, but there are paths where there is a really high likelihood of that being the result. And that's, why this system works well. So I would just say I would research the headlines and I would pay attention, but I would also understand that what's actually going on the ground and when they're doing research and coming to your channel is very different than sometimes what the mainstream media might be reporting on. And there can be ulterior motives for why those are in the headlines, right? And I think as a place to study and live and work, it's just as attractive as it was 6, 12 months ago or before, and will continue to be. But yes, prices are going up and we need to figure out ways to deal with that. And that's why working with someone that can figure that out is, I think, really important.
Okay. The next question that I had to ask has to do with accommodation. In recent times, a lot of students get admission to Ontario. Ontario is like the educational hub of Canada. You have like thousands and thousands of people coming to Ontario. I watched something on the news very recently about how people come into Ontario for school and they end up being stranded in terms of accommodation, also with inflation that's going up. So my question was, what services does HELP offer to ensure that international students will find suitable accommodation during their studies in Canada? Is there any sort of accommodation partnerships across different provinces, and how will this benefit international students?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so important. Two things. First, I wouldn't frame this as an Ontario narrative. I think it's at the school level. So part of the problem is there are agents in the source countries that just want to get you to a school. They don't look at the whole picture. And accommodation, whether it's on-campus accommodation or off-campus accommodation, you have to look at that at like the school and city level of where you are applying. And you need to take that into consideration before you submit the apps. Some private colleges don't have dorms. So if you're going to stay in that area, you're going to be renting, somewhere in the city that college is in, right? Well, then you want to look at rental prices, the supply of units that are out there, and those prices are going up. Those prices aren't going up because international students are coming to Canada in higher waves, or at least that's not the sole driver. It's more because the municipal regulations prohibit them from building more supply or having traditional residences become the student housing supply. But that's actually changing. I think Sean Fraser is doing some great work there right now. But overall, this is at the school and the city level. So if I'm a student, and when we're talking to students, there's two things here: what we would advise them and then what we actually do. Part of where you decide to go needs to be, okay, what is the program do? How can I recruit into a job? What does that look like? But also, what's that school's infrastructure? Because some schools have been growing the number of international students on their campus without looking at the other support services, like, housing or class size or different things, right? And won't name names, but like, there are places where there are more students than probably there are places to stay. That's very rare. So when you're working with someone and you're understanding where to apply, we can understand before we submit that application, oh, this college has on-campus housing, and if you apply for this program, like, you have this % chance of getting it. If not, here's the standard rental price for a 1-bedroom or a student house in that area, and we can understand how that fits into the budget, right? Because a college in Toronto will have different cost of living implications than a college in like Northern Ontario, than the East Coast and the West Coast, right? And Ontario is very popular, but within Ontario, there are different housing markets for different schools, right? So I would just take a look at that. in terms of when you're working with HALP, we advise our students and we understand at the city level for every single college what that looks like, whether you will get on-campus residence, whether you might not, whether you want that or not, and then what the implications are for where you will live. We don't own buildings ourselves and we don't act as a landlord, so we can't control the cost of living and we can't control, and guarantee a spot. However, we will help you understand, here are all of the short-term listings, long-term listings. We do have partners that have student residences that we work with and we refer our students to. But ultimately, the student has to decide on campus, off campus, what's my budget? And then what does this specific school and city look like in terms of that, right? Like renting in London, Ontario versus Toronto, Ontario versus Barrie versus North Bay. Like these are different things, right? And we can understand what a student's budget is, the student experience they're looking for, city, small city, distance from airport, like all these things have to go into how you think about it. And then we refer them to people that have those units available, but I'm unable to control price or availability, right?
Okay. Are there any collaborations or any initiatives, even though not now, even if it's something maybe you're considering in the future? So are there any of those that HALP is involved in or working on to connect international students with job opportunities and employers in Canada? Or is it just only helping you get through school, getting postgraduate work permit and permanent residency, but they have to look for the opportunities on their own?
Yeah. We are starting to have employers reach out to us about working with our students or being able to get, look at it as an interview pool potentially. We don't have a formal product built around this. There's kind of two things. We want to make it super easy for a student to get in, to get the visa, then get set up and housing and everything. Then you study for 2 years. During that time, we will also hire students as marketing coordinators as different areas, or the colleges might help them find co-ops depending on the program. After you're done though, we will still use our same immigration technology and lawyers to submit the postgrad work permit and then eventually the PR application. The one thing that we don't do in that right now is have a formal layer to our product that will say, hey, these 20 people are hiring in, BC, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and, go do these interviews and here's how it works. I think that would be down the line. Right now, we just want, if the student's able to find the job, we can do everything else. And that's all on platform and done by HALP. But I don't have a formal job board right now. But if a student is incoming right now and they're graduating in 2 years, by the time they graduate, probably we will have something built for them in that area. You don't lose access to your coach while you're in school, right? So we have a lot of students that are here and they ask questions or different things. And sometimes they're like, how would I, is there any way you could point me in the direction of finding a summer internship opportunity that is in the GTA or whatever? And the coach will still go out and Google around and try to find some solutions for you. It's just not a formal part of our product that we do for everybody all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Just before you go, do you have any final words, thoughts, advice for international students? Because I talk all the time with my international students, but I'm really happy that you're here. So I think it's better that they hear it directly from someone who's involved. Any final thoughts or words for international students who are currently watching on my channel right now?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. One, if you are serious about it, congratulations, because I think that study abroad and access to international higher education is an incredible thing. It can drastically improve prospects. The experience allows people to really learn a lot about themselves, but also, participate in the economy in a real way. And I think that that's an incredible thing. It's not easy to do and it can be scary and you move across the world and it's expensive, but the type of people that do that, I think, are very brave. And so just congratulations to them for thinking about that. The second piece is work with people that know what they're doing. If you're thinking about doing it yourself and applying directly versus if you want to work with someone to help you through that process, there are a lot of really great resources, not just HALP, that are free, that can increase your chances of LOA, of the visa, but also that can give you, and especially if they're located in the country you're applying for, right? They know what's going on with those job markets, with the housing markets, with the schools themselves, and how that impacts your likelihood of success. They can save you money. They can save you time and headache, right? Do your research, because good advice can be difficult to find, and not everybody's intentions always line up with your own. We'll say that, but it can be really, really helpful because I know it's a stressful time going through that transition, right? From home country to study abroad. So just do your research, go to channels like this, understand what's out there for you. And once you're serious about it and ready to go, there are a lot of people that want, like us, that want to help make that dream a reality, right? So those would be the two pieces.
Okay. Thank you very much, Matt, for coming on my channel and answering all of these questions.
The big takeaway from this interview is that regardless of what's going on, regardless of what has been said or what you might have heard in the news, nothing has been set in stone. Canada is still very much open to international students. You can still submit applications to universities and colleges against 2024 admission intake. Your best bet to ensuring that you have no hassles with your application for admission is by using a study abroad admissions guide such as HALP. Consider using HALP as your admissions guide and your admissions coach to apply for admission to come into Canada with guaranteed acceptance rates of over 96%. Their mission is to make studying abroad easier and more affordable for international students. HALP is going to pair you with a one-on-one admissions coach that is based in Canada, and they will guide you from discovering programs that fit your career and immigration goals, as well as your budget and your personal needs, to building and submitting strong applications, gaining admission to top programs, and securing your study visa to help you navigate moving to a new country. HALP has a new program called the Canadian Express Study Program, CESP. This program is available to international students that are applying to come and study in Canada in 2024. When you sign up with HALP and get into the CESP program, you will get all of the initial benefits that HALP has to offer and more. You will get a free one-on-one personal immigration lawyer to build and submit your study visa application, which gives you a much higher chance of acceptance than applying for a study visa on your own or using an immigration agent. Immigration lawyer applications are viewed much more positively by the IRCC. You are also guaranteed to receive $800 cash bonus to help you settle in Canada, which you can use for groceries, rent, flights, or anything to help you get settled. You are also guaranteed continued free one-on-one access to your immigration lawyer for postgraduate work permits and permanent residency applications after you graduate. Getting expert unbiased advice from an admissions coach based in Canada is insanely valuable, especially during times like this, and now might be a better time than ever to apply to Canada, especially if there's slightly less competition from prospective students being misinformed by headlines. HALP coaches will build your study plan with jobs, postgraduate work permits, and their immigration goals in mind, and they will provide you with free end-to-end guidance so that you can get into your dream program. To register with HALP and get started on applying for your admission to study in Canada and to get into the CESP program, I'll have the link up on the screen that you can use to sign up. I'm also going to have the link in the description box and in the comment section. You can use it to sign up, create an account, which is very easy, and get paired with an admissions coach and then start your application journey. Alright guys, so that is it for this video. I hope that you were able to find insights and valuable information that clears your doubts and puts your mind at ease from this interview with Matt. Please like this video if it did it for you. Also subscribe to my channel for more videos and turn on your post notifications so that you never miss any videos the next time that I upload. I will see you guys in my next video. Stay safe. Bye.
Stay in the mood.